So today, I plan on pulling the injectors out of this 2002 Silverado 2500 HD with a 6.0 in it. So to do that, I'm gonna loosen up this top plate here so I can get these cables for the throttle body here out of the way. Probably gonna unplug some of this wiring here for the alternator, throttle body positioning sensor, that kind of stuff out of the way. Pull the vents off, and for the fuel pressure regulator, then I got these bolts here that hold the fuel rail on. Right there is one, and then there's another one way back there. It is back there somewhere. This side is really easy. As you can see, there's one bolt here and another one here. My plan is to take this start bolt out, here, and just pull the fuel rail off as one piece, so I don't gotta try to fish this line out from underneath the harness and everything, because that rail will pop up and I can just pop the injectors out. So I'm gonna start taking the top part off, lines, disconnect the wiring and stuff, and then I will pick up with you guys after I get that done. Alright, so loosen this plate up. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. Which was these 3 bolts. I like to put them back after taking them out so then I don't lose them, and I know when I look at this plate I'm like, oh, where's the bolts at? Okay, well there's 3 here in the same pattern, so those obviously go there. Took this one off here, same with that, put the nut back on, and now I'm going to unplug this wiring here to get this out of the way. Go. So then I can pull this up over out of the way. Now I can move this freely out of my way. Now we got right here is your fuel pressure regulator. You can pop this hose off here, and then also this vent that goes to your valve cover, you can pop that out, and you can sling this up back here out of the way, just like so. This you could pull and put over here. Just try not to move that too much because this is such a small vacuum line that they tend to break right here on these bends when they get brittle. Now I want to get the right torque size to take this out. This screw will come out, this plate will come off, and then you're able to pop these 2 lines straight up out of the fuel rail, and you're able to move this enough to where you're actually able to then loosen up the 2 bolts that hold the fuel rail down, and then you can pop the whole fuel rail out and walk it out. It's easier to pop it up, turn it, and then kind of walk it out that way. But then before we do that, I also want to pull the wiring off for the injectors, which is as simple as that clip right there. This one right here. You're gonna have that tab, you're gonna pull it up. It's gonna pull up 1/8 inch, and then you're able to reach down past it and feel a little piece that you're gonna push in, and then wiggle it, and it should pop up like so. So therefore, you see right here, this right here snaps down, which locks this piece from being able to push in to release the lock on the fuel injector. So you push this up, pull it up a little bit, which now you can see there's a gap here, and you're able to push that down in, and it'll release the clip on your fuel injector. So I'm going to do that with the other 3, and I'll catch right back up with you guys. Alright, so I got all these fuel injector plugs disconnected. 5/16 socket will fit on the bolts holding the fuel rail down. Next one is right there, right where your fuel lines come in and connect to the fuel rails. If you look on just the other side of that, you will see it is right there next to where the fuel lines snap onto the fuel rails. Alright, I pulled the 2 bolts holding the fuel rail down. Now I'm going to take this 20 Torx bit, but this is one of those safety ones. It's got the hole in the center. You don't have to have that. It just needs to be a 20 Torx. Alright, so once you pull that off, the screw comes out, the plate comes flying off, just like that. And then you gotta go looking for the plate, which I don't know where it went. That's always fun. Anyways, put this up here out of the way so I know where it's at. Probably lose it. Anyways, and these here, now that they don't have that on there, you can see pulled right out. Okay? And then if you have the fuel rail loosened, what you could do then is when you pull up on the fuel rail, like so, reach back here on this end, pull up, and then you take these and you make sure you pull that fuel rail out to the side, like that. Okay? And now you're able to pick this end up, lock it out, pull this side towards the intake like this so it's all cockeyed, and you're just trying to feed it around everything like so, pulling it towards the firewall, and then up and out just like so. Okay, so this is what the driver's side fuel rail looks like, the injectors and the fuel pressure regulator on it. So what I like to do is I usually get like a glass jar or a clear bottle and dump the fuel out of the fuel rail. Lean it back and forth. I'm kind of doing it on this rag so then I can still kind of see if there's any dirt. I mean, you can see there's some dirt in it there, and you don't want to see any of that. So that means there is dirt in your system. So this whole fuel rail is going to need cleaned. Okay, so I did end up finding this bottle here that I'm going to try to use. Probably going to fail miserably and still get gas everywhere. But you don't have to try to get it all. I'm just trying to get the majority of it. So then it's easier on me for when I pull the injectors out. I don't get gasoline all up my arm as bad as if it was completely full and the injector come flying out of it. Now to get these injectors off, there's these clips here. Okay. And all they do is I like to stick 2 fingers, each one of my thumbs on the left and right of that clip, and kind of pry it apart while pushing it forward so it pops off. Shooting off. So I got that one off. There it goes. Alright, so that's what the clip looks like. And it snaps onto the fuel rail. You know, right here. And then also down here on the fuel injector, right there where it flattens out and it sits on these. I like to then pull these out. I'm just going to snap the rest of these off. You could either put 2 fingers here, pry forward, and it flies off. I like to make it so then it goes straight down onto something like a workbench, or I'm using a tailgate for now. Or even if you have like a small coffee can or a container or something, you could do it over so when it shoots off it goes in the container, doesn't bounce around. Or you can use a small flathead screwdriver to try to pry these off, but you don't want to break the side fins off these injectors if you're just taking them off to check them and clean them. If you have an injector tester, which I have one, but I'm just replacing all these so I don't have to worry about tearing this apart again. Same with the fuel pressure regulator. Pry this off, it pops off, and then this whole piece slides out, and then it should have a O-ring in the center of it, a small filter, then another O-ring for the outside diameter of it to fit in there. So I'm going to pop this off, the rest of these clips, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So I got all the clips off of everything. Fuel pressure regulators right here. Usually give it a little twist. This O-ring came off, which sits right on this edge lip here. And then this spot right here, this little nipple end, actually has an O-ring also that you can see is still in there. So this O-ring, and then you have this filter piece. So when this is all together, you have this piece, it slides over like so. Then you have this O-ring that sits over the outside edge like that. This filter, little screen, sits over it this way so that piece rises up towards the top, where then that O-ring is going to sit on like that. And then this all plops right down in there. And this holds it all on. So now for these injectors, all they do is they pull straight down, right out. They can be hard to pull out, but all you do is you just keep pulling. I like to just grab a hold of it, grab it around this right here, and just pull real hard, and they pop right out. All right, good start. Pulled all these out. That's what they look like. So this right here, as you can see, is covered in dirt. They got two little holes there for spraying, and then the O-ring, and this little black piece right here is what's going to seat on the intake, and then this O-ring here is what sits up in the fuel rail there. And a lot of times, just from visually looking down in this, you will usually see it full of gunk and clogged up. So I'm going to get a flashlight, see if I can show you guys the inside of these. Alright, so you see how you can see down in there, and you can see that there is a little silver bottom end, and then it looks like a circle in the center there. That is the all the way down to the inside. Sometimes you can't even see all the way in there like so. So this one's actually pretty clean, which makes sense because I actually cleaned this side already and put them back in the truck, and it still had a misfire because they were kind of gummed up. But I'm just going to replace them all so I don't have to take them apart again. But yeah, that's what it kind of looks like on the inside. Usually these are completely full and you can't even see through them. And what happens with that is when it tries to open and close, it gets some of that gunk inside of them, or gums it up so bad to where you can't even clean them anymore, or they just stop working in general and they need replaced. You can usually tell if the injectors need replaced on these if you have a cylinder misfire, but there is no necessarily code other than just the misfire. That's what I've learned, because a lot of times other stuff will come up, like whether it's the MAP or O2 sensors or something along that lines, whether it's something with the coils or throttle body positioning sensor, or all the other stuff. It kind of has a sensor that it will give you a code for, where this, I've had the problem where it just says a misfire, doesn't give me any other code, and I've changed the injectors and made sure that the fuel lines and everything was clean and I was getting clean fuel, and I haven't had a problem since. So this is what I did on my 1500 with the 5.3. This is a 2500 with a 6.0. I do know that the 5.3s and the 6.0s use the same fuel injectors and everything, because I've called and verified even about swapping them, because I considered pulling them out of my 1500 since I just swapped them, putting them in my 2500, but I'm just going to replace them all. So this truck's got all new injectors, my other truck's got all new injectors, and I'll be good to go. Alright, back under the hood in the engine bay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the passenger side now, which is the, you heard that click? That's the lock mechanism coming up. So you're able to get your finger on, let me move real quick, the actual piece of the clip that you need to push in. Sometimes this happens where you pull it hard enough, this comes off. Do not worry, because these have, if it'll focus, an open end on them, so they will pop off, and these slide right back in as long as none of this stuff, these little thin pieces, break off, or this T piece here. As long as that didn't break, or one of these sides did not break, it'll go right back on like you never pulled it off. And I'll show you how to do that when I get the rest of these unplugged. Alrighty, so I got those all unplugged. I'll show you this. This is what the plug looks like for the injector. This is what this piece looks like. It's a little locking mechanism. Now to put these back together, what you're gonna do is find the side with the little push tab on it, right there. Going to take this end like this, so this piece is going to go towards this white shaft part, so you're going to stick it in. Alright, you're going to stick this in right there where it's got that little hole. You're going to push the tab down and push this in. So once it starts snapping in, then this piece here, you can push it back on, and then hear it click, because that's it sliding down far enough to where it locks it. And that's how they come apart. And you put them back together. Alright, so I'm going to unbolt this and take this little 20 T20 Torx bit screw out. Pop this out so I can pop this line off. And then I can pop this fuel rail out. Okay, I am taking the last bolt out here for the fuel rail. And I just wanted to make a little claimer here about when I was talking about earlier that it's the injectors when there's no codes, just a misfire. I do want to state that every time that I've done this, I've always first, before assuming that, put plugs and wires in it, which you can tell these are brand new wires. Those are brand new plugs in it. And I also checked each coil to verify that it's getting spark to the spark plug. That and making sure that I am getting fuel to the motor. I did check the airbox. It is a brand new air filter and everything looks clean there. So I know it's getting air, I know it's getting fuel, and I know it's getting spark, and it's still misfiring. So therefore, with no other codes, and it's just a check engine light with the misfire code, that's how I know that it's the injectors. So I'm not stating, if you go out to your truck and look at, oh look, I got a misfire, and there's no other codes, it's the injectors, and you change them, it doesn't work. That is not my fault, because I've also spent the money on plugs, wires, made sure I was getting fuel, made sure I was getting air, made sure I was getting spark before then doing that. Because that's pretty much all you need to make them run. I mean, yes, with all this computers and stuff, there's all these sensors and special things that you need, but I mean, realistically, for it to fire, you're going to need spark, fuel, and air, so those are the key things. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to pop this line out, and then I'm able to pull this to the side and pull it out. Alright, I did have to get a long screwdriver, or you probably use a small pry bar in here. I used a long one, and all I did was I brought it in through here. I don't have it with me right now, I just put it back over the workbench. But I put it in through here, basically, sitting on the fuel rail that's on the support of the intake, and pried up here. Make sure you don't bend or break that line there, and it popped right out, as you can see. I didn't use the extension. I guess I might have been able to, but I just went and got a pry bar. So now this pops up out of the way, and these fuel rails now can wiggle. Alright, so I'm going to pop one side, reach back here, pop the other side. Now that that's popped, this side's a lot easier. You can come straight up and out. Okay, so I pulled this side off, this passenger side. Oddly enough, the passenger side, all cylinders were firing. Okay. It's the end of that one. The end of that one. That one looks all caked up with stuff because when I was pulling it out, I dropped it in. That one's all caked with stuff as I'm pouring fuel out of the fuel rail. That one's caked with dirt. But look, I started dumping out this on this rag. Look at all that goodness. All this dirt and rust. And then you can even see there's like these yellow little gelatin spots. That's from the fuel and stuff gumming up. Turns to goodness. This one's a little easier to empty out because it's only got one porthole here. But what I do is I lean it, tilt it back and forth to get the gas rocking from each side into the container. What's nice about a glass jar is because you can actually see inside of it the dirt and stuff. That bottle already had dirt and stuff in it because it was just hanging out in this dirty bed. This thing sat in the field for 20 some years. I've been fixing it up. As you can see in one of my part 1 videos of pulling it out of the field. So far I got some tail lights for it, third brake light, tow mirrors, headlights. I got a new plastic for it. And then I've got over there in these boxes, I got brand new rockers, inner rockers, cab corners. I'm gonna get the body work done with it when I get it running. When I bought the truck though, it had the stock wheels on it. And then this wheel here, which I had to buy, well, I didn't have to buy the tire, but I had to put a tire on it. It's a steel wheel as a spare. But the rims basically look like these. And then I bought these off a kid for like $100. The tread's worn all the way down. These are painted just so that I had all 4 matching wheels. And then I ended up going with these nice moto metals. They're really nice. I love them. It's a 33 12.5 by 20, so 20-inch rim, 14 wide. So these things are wide. They look awesome on the truck. I've already had them on there. I just threw these wheels back on it because I haven't trimmed the front end for the wheels to fit yet. I gotta trim this part of the bumper back a little bit like this with this plastic for more turning radius. As you can see, I painted and did all the framework on it, which you could see in my part 1 video of the getting this all built, putting it together, before and afters. Anyways, back to the task at hand. That's filthy. I know, I'm getting sidetracked. So I'm going the same way with pulling these off. I'm going to pull these clips off, pull the injectors out, and then I'm going to show you how I clean this out to get all the dirt and stuff out of it. And I will get back with you guys when I'm done pulling this apart. Alright, got all the injectors out of that side. Now I'm going to show you the inside of one of these ones that I haven't cleaned yet. And look at that. Look at how awesome it looks. See, that one's completely trash. And then one of these ones that I've cleaned, how you can see all the way down. That one's still got some gunk in it though. Probably because I put it back in the motor and ran it again, and it was misfiring still because there was still stuff in the fuel rails. But see how clean that looks compared to the other side. And sometimes you can clean these out, but they still will not work, and it just trashed the injector. So I got all new injectors on order. They'll be in tomorrow. That's how you take these apart and everything. How I clean this, what I like to do is I take Shop Solve, which you can use any cleaner that evaporates or will not leave moisture, and I spray it in all these. I basically slosh it around and I rinse it out, which you could probably use like water and like rinse it out thoroughly, but you'd have to make sure that you got it completely dry before reinstalling anything, so you don't put water through your motor, obviously. That's why I'd rather use the money and just use some of these solvents, and I really get in there and spray in all the corners and the edges. Center I'm not really too worried about, just more like right here, getting that direction in the corner, make sure nothing's sticking. And when I do that, I could slosh it around and kind of break anything loose and then release this and it lets it all out. And you do that a couple times, and then what I like to do is say, I'm doing this one hand, but I usually do it with two, and I use one hand to cover this hole while I'm filling these up so it fills up the rail more. Is then I will, once I did that a couple times, I'll get a glass jar, glass bowl, something, and I will plug this end up, spray it in one of these, or all four, whatever you want to do. If it should be clean, and it shouldn't have too much dirt in it. And you just want to not fill it completely, but get a good amount in there, slosh it around really good, dump it in a clear, clear bottle, and then if it all comes out clear, and there's no dirt or sand or rust or anything in it, then you know the inside's completely clean. Once you get it all, you let it sit for about 10-15 minutes, depending on what cleaner you use, and it'll dry up like this here. I can spray that there, it fans out, and then you let it sit there for a good minute, and it'll just start drying up and evaporating. Look at it! No, I'm joking. Anyways, that's like my hands. You could see that they look all dried out now because I was just spraying my hands with that stuff. It dries it out really quick. But see, if you look in there, it's probably hard to see because there's no light. But see how it looks nice and dry. But off camera, I'm going to do what I said. I'm going to plug this hole up with finger or my hand, spray some of that in here, slosh it around, dump it out. I don't have a clear, clean bottle, so what I'm going to probably do is get a couple more of these rags and paper towels and just dump it onto there, so then I can actually see how much dirt it's collecting, because this will filter out the dirt basically and let anything else fall through. So even if you had a dirty container or something to dump it out, and you dumped it on one of these as like a strainer, but I wouldn't suggest using a strainer unless you got something that's really fine, to make sure you get all the particles and stuff out. So not so you can get it out of the cleaner, it's just so you're able to actually see how much dirt is still in here. And then it is just as simple as popping the new ones up in, snapping these on, which I'll do in a later video when I get them in tomorrow. Yeah, so that's how you take your fuel injectors out. You can inspect them, look at them, clean your fuel rails. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to take probably that plastic bottle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off the fuel lines that are right there, and I'm going to put that in the bottle, and then I'm probably going to cycle the key a few times to let the fuel pump out gas, and I'm going to check to make sure that it's getting good gas to the fuel rails and the new injectors, because there's no point in doing all this work if you're still pumping rusty or dirty gas to them. They're just going to clog them up and be in the same boat you were right before you changed them, which I do know this has a new fuel filter on it because I replaced that, but I still want to pump and cycle that through to make sure there's no dirt or anything in that line. And then what you can do, since I got this line off here that connects the two fuel rails, I'll probably end up sliding that off and out of there and spraying the inside of that out and making sure that that is clean. It's a lot easier to do that now because it's not connected as a bridge connecting the two fuel rails as one whole piece. That can just kind of snake its way out and over if I twist it and pull it through and spray that, make sure that's all clean. So if you guys have any other questions on how to take it all apart and get to this point, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, and leave a like on the video. And if you want to see part 2, look out for part 2 and tune in to see the assemble and put everything back together how it should go. Thanks for watching.